Hey guys, welcome to the Dungeon Master's journey. Today what I want to talk about is the fact that I read the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master and I managed to implement that into my last game with much less prep than I would normally do, and I think it actually helped smooth things out through the game, helped us get some ideas of what I was doing, and basically anything that I'd prepared, I didn't prepare like a story, I prepared events that I could fit in anywhere no matter what happened, and I think it really helped the game. Basically what happened, so the characters came back from the crypt, they were on the way back. We only had 3 characters this week. We had the Paladin, the Warlock and the Barbarian. They came back in through the town. I didn't let them long rest between the sessions, so they walked through the town. They noticed that the alchemist's shop was shut down still, so I think what that is a good sense of is that what the characters do, their actions have consequences. So the characters stole basically all the stock from the alchemist shop. They knew that the lady who ran it, I forget her name, she would have went out of business. That's why she wouldn't sell that or give away the potion that would have saved no woman in the first session. So I think that just gives it a more realistic thing, and it actually shows that what the characters are doing are having consequences in the world, and it's not just they're playing through a story that doesn't change no matter what. Their actions have consequences. They then went past the blacksmiths and saw that the blacksmith's shop was shut. The fires hadn't been stoked, nothing had happened, but it was quite early in the morning. Didn't find anything unusual there. They didn't see anything unusual. Then they went back to the Adventurers Guild, found out that they had to pay guild fees of 10%, which they did pay, but they were like, they were a bit stingy about giving away 10 gold for that. But you know, that was part of being the Adventurers Guild, and it, you know, the food, the clothes and the rest, everything like that. Then they long rested and they got up and they decided to go to the tavern. There was 2 people in the tavern because it was early in the morning. There was the barman Bunce, who liked to spit in everyone's beer. So every time, didn't matter what happened. So I think the Warlock tried to convince him of something and got a really low roll. So I had him spit in the glass and pour a beer. And then when everyone else came up, they also spat in the glass and pour a beer. And I think that was quite a comedy moment. Now, this is where the Lazy Dungeon Masters comes into this video, because with both those NPCs, I had different information that those NPCs would give out. But what actually happened was they didn't really ask any questions of one of them, and they didn't really ask anything of Buns, the barman, and were asking Turok, who was just like an elf in the corner, loads of questions. And actually I just took all of the things that Buns was going to say and gave them to Turok. Now it might not seem like a big deal, but actually if I was running this like a rules as written, rules library kind of Grognard Dungeon Master, I would have went, well, they didn't find this out now, so they're not going to know. But this is stuff that I want them to know because it builds the story. You know, like these are plot drivers. They needed to find out that the battle between the light and the darkness was 1,000 years ago. They needed to find out that the wizard Arclighter died saving the island of Sunhaven, and you know, just stuff like that. But it drives the plot forward, it builds the world as well. Turok gave some information on that and then kind of said, oh, if you go to the library in Uptown you're going to get some more stuff. But Bunce also mentioned about how Baldo had been arrested because the guards thought he was the half-orc who stole all the potions. So they went to the town square where Baldo was in stocks and made a deal with the guards to free Baldo if they bring in the Sword of Light. Now the barbarian player didn't admit to the crime. He could have, but he didn't. So basically they said, if we bring in Nathaniel from the Sword of Light, will you let Baldo go? And we're like, yeah, that's a deal. But as a dungeon master at that point, I also had to say, look, I haven't prepared that, so can we leave that till next session? And then I'll be able to prepare a load of cool stuff. You can go there if you want. You know, I'm not going to railroad the players, but if they go there now, I haven't got anything prepared, so it's just going to be like what I can pull up in my head at that point. I did have the miniatures with us for the Sword of Light, normal guys, but not Nathaniel, the leader, so I would have preferred to leave that till next time, and the players were happy with that. So the players travelled to Uptown across the bridge. The guards let them through because they noticed that the shield that the paladin had got had the blue dragon logo on. Now I'm kind of pushing this whole blue dragon versus black dragon thing. The blue dragons are the light, the black dragons are the darkness. See if the players have put that together now. I think they have. So they go across, they go to the library, knock on the door. The librarian comes out under a balcony above. Now I've drawn out a battle map for this. Like, just what I've been doing is printing out word paper and just drawing it on with marker pens, and I think that's quite good. The librarian, he's like an archmage. I use the archmage stats straight from the monster manual. He freezes the players' feet into the stone and silences them all. Gives each one of them a riddle, but that's after initiative's been called and the combat starts. So one of the gargoyles on the front of the building comes to life, and he comes down and like swoops in, and he like swoops past and attacks the players on the way past. Now they can still do actions, they just can't move, so they could attack, but the gargoyles swooping past them. So basically what's happening is on the players' turns they can do reactions or dodges mainly, and then on the gargoyles' turn the players are getting a reactive attack against it. So I didn't think it was too hard. They eventually, I think it was 3 or 4 rounds in, they all got their riddles right. They were pretty simple riddles, and that let them like do whatever they want in the combat. None of them got knocked unconscious, and the librarian let them into the library. This gave us a little bit of role play moment, conversations between the librarian and the players. They had a look around, they found the book, which had a wall of text basically saying the same thing before. The circle was destroyed. The light in the dark had a fight. Arclighter gave his life. Haleth became the new wizard in charge. It's quite interesting, but I'm not going to read it out verbatim now. I wrote it in a way that a historian would have wrote it, and I think that was a nice little touch. I think the players appreciated that. They also found draped over the back of the chair a cloak. Now this is something I made it up on the spot. Like, I wanted there to be a magic item there, and I decided it was going to be a cloak, but I thought, you know what, I can add another hook into this story just from nothing. Who left the cloak? So it turned out to be an elf. Went in wearing a grey cloak, came out without the grey cloak, but he was reading the same book that the players have just read, but it tore a piece out of it. So where I had the information I gave to the players, I left it at ... and then just went, and the next piece has been torn out. So somebody's taken that information. So the players left. The paladin wasn't very happy with the warlock stealing the cloak. The librarian, on the other hand, couldn't care less. He actually identified it for them and told them that it had some kind of frost resistance. And then the players went back across the bridge. Now this is when I put in the warlock's vision. So this is important as well, that it says so in the Lazy Dungeon Master's Guide as well. Make some notes about the characters and the players and what they want and their backstories. And the warlocks have patrons, and the patrons need to communicate. Now I asked the player, how does his patron communicate with this character? And he said, oh, you know, fires go black. Well, what I did was I had the sun go black. So when they were halfway across the bridge, the sun went black, time slowed down for everyone but him. And the warlock basically gave him a little speech, a couple of sentences. The warlock's patron is giving him his powers so the warlock can kind of chase down the enemy. Now, so I've had it so that the enemy actually turns out to be the main enemy in my story. So, you know, I've put two things together, two clues have come together. The players feel like they're making progress in the story. It was just like a little cool moment. It only took a couple of minutes. It built the characters into the story a little bit more. You know, the barbarians having to rescue his brother, the warlocks having visions. I need to kind of fit the paladin in a bit better. I'm not sure, I don't think the paladin player actually really gave his character much of a backstory, but I'm going to have to check, and I'll make sure if he has, I'm going to fit it into the next session. I went back to the tavern, asked Turok a few questions. At first they thought he might have been the elf that had taken the slip of paper. Turns out it wasn't him, but he's actually after people. You know, he's like an agent hunting down enemy agents. They asked him if he would help them storm sort of light. He's like, oh, I've got bigger fish to fry. They went back to the Adventurers Guild. They asked Lyndall and Ryan seemed up for it. my idea there is, if I have a new player, not character but player, which I might, and they might not have played D&D before, instead of having them make their own characters or whatever for their first session, I'm going to make Ryan as a character and they can play as her to see if they actually like the game before I build them in and write them into the stories. Lazy Dungeon Master's Guide, I think nothing was unusual, nothing was anything that I would never have thought of myself, but it just reinforces these things into your head, that the amount of prep you do doesn't have to be extreme. Like, I did probably about an hour's prep writing the story, so I had 2 pages of A4 of little cutscenes and clues, and I had to do the riddles. Then I did probably about half an hour making the battle maps and another hour or 2 painting miniatures, and I think that's not a bad amount of time. Obviously, if you don't paint or use miniatures, you can cut that right down, because then you're not making battle maps or anything like that. So the next session is going to be battling against the Sword of Light. The players don't know how they want to do it yet, so we've got our group chat, and they're going to decide basically what kind of session they want, and I can start planning around that, whether they want it to be subterfuge and stealth, or whether they just want it to be a big fight. I've got a feeling they're going to say big fight, but we'll see. So I'm going to start planning that after I've finished making this video. So thanks you for watching. If you like what you watch, please subscribe and like the videos. It really helps me out, and I will see you next time.